Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Pint Podcast. Our show will start right after these messages from our sponsors.
Hey, Matt. We're thinking of selling our home and finding a bigger place.
Oh, really? I thought you guys loved where you lived.
Oh, we do. Our family is just growing. With pets. A dog, a cat, 2 guinea pigs, a hamster.
And you're planning on getting more?
Maybe a goat or a crocodile.
Well, I have the person for you. Kimmy Najad is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients.
We're just browsing now. I'm not sure if we really need a realtor yet.
Yeah, no worries. Kimmy can help you with the comparative market analysis to help you determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work at your pace.
Awesome. All right, I'll give her a shot. What's her phone number?
On Facebook, Kimmy Najad, Exit Realty Metro. Her phone number is 902-880-8429, and her email is kimia@exitmetro.ca.
902-880-8429. Awesome. Thanks.
This podcast was brought to you by Dan Lomas. That's LOMAS of lomasfinancial.ca.
Are you a small business owner who wants to keep more of your hard-earned profits and pay less taxes to the CRA? Do you want to plan for a comfortable and secure retirement? If your answer is yes, then you need to talk to Dan Lomas at Lomas Financial.
Dan Lomas is a financial advisor who has been helping successful entrepreneurs and business owners for over 2.5 decades. He utilizes customized solutions that can help you keep your earnings, dramatically reducing passive income tax.
Dan Lomas and his team will help you transition corporate wealth into personal wealth by utilizing customized executive pension plans. Dan will show you how to convert business wealth into personal wealth in a professional manner.
Don't let the CRA take more money than they deserve. Don't let your retirement dreams fade away. Contact Dan Lomas today and let him guide you on your path to financial success.
Visit Dan Lomas at lomasfinancial.ca or call him direct at 902-209-0855. That's 902-209-0855. All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. My name is Matt Conrad, and I am solo today. We have no Mike Tobin. He is sick. So I am doing this solo. We've had a couple times we've had to do it solo, so my turn, I guess. So who do we have today?
Shelly Elsliger.
So Shelly, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah, let's give the short version because we're going to have a long version here soon. Yeah.
I do a lot, but predominantly I have my own business called Linked Express, and that's basically all around LinkedIn training and making sure people have a voice on LinkedIn. And I'm also in equity, diversity, and inclusion at St. Mary's, something that I'm a big champion for. And put those two together, and that makes me.
We're gonna hash that out. So you are our first employee of St. Mary's. If you I guess want to call employee or someone who is employed by St. Mary's, but because we've had 3 or 4 Dalhousie people, so we're breaking into the SMU community now.
Well, I think I needed to be here.
No, definitely, I think so too. Yeah, I mean we met a couple months ago and we were trying to get this done. The crazy thing about podcasting is, you know, when it's your part-time gig, if you want to see your family, you got to make sure you schedule things out, you know, not too overwhelmingly. And we're busy right now. So we're really happy to have you on because you have a really cool story, I think, not only just personally, but also professionally. So you're the LinkedIn guru. And, you know, we've talked a lot about social media on the show before, but I don't think we've really talked much about LinkedIn. So if anyone who doesn't know what LinkedIn is, why don't you explain what LinkedIn is?
I'm more than happy to explain what LinkedIn is. So LinkedIn is a networking tool. It's basically a global platform, but the foundation is in networking. So a lot of people think it's a job search site or, a place to put your resume, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But they have different ideas about what LinkedIn is. But foundationally, it is based in networking and professionals helping other professionals advance.
You know what? Honestly, I joined LinkedIn. I don't even know what it was, like 10 years ago or something. And I'll be honest with you, as an amateur, rookie, whatever you want to call me, like I didn't really enjoy LinkedIn all that much until this podcast, until we started this, like whatever it is, 9 months ago or 10 months ago, whenever this airs. But yeah, it wasn't until then, because LinkedIn has been great for us. Honestly, the LinkedIn community has actually been awesome for this. We've gotten a lot of support from it. We've had people who've shared it, and we don't get it's crazy. We don't get the same reaction or engagements as we do on social media on LinkedIn, but we can tell that certain things get picked up, especially in the academic world or the professional world. If we have a Dalhousie professor on, or if we have someone like an employee of some sort of academia, whatever, LinkedIn seems to really kind of focus on it.
Yes.
And you can see how much they kind of pile on in a good way, right?
And it might be a different way, because it's made for professionals. So
Right.
it's the only site that is grounded in professionalism as well. So what we do on TikTok and Facebook and Insta is related to more the social, where it is very social on LinkedIn, but there's a professional component to it that you can't forget about, because that's what it's grounded into.
Yeah. When did LinkedIn start?
2003 when it started.
Okay, so 2003 started. That is quite some time, over 20 years now. So it actually was kind of before a lot of the other social medias and stuff like that. But I haven't, like I said, I think I joined about 10 years ago or something like that. So it must not have really had like a real serious boom until about 10 or so years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking at just in 2023, it hit 1 billion.
Oh,
so
wow, okay.
November 2023, it hit 1 billion people. So, the more people, obviously the more users,
Right.
the more power, right? So back in 2003, I think, again, people saw it as a place to put your resume. They didn't really quite understand what it was. And I think it's evolved and developed. And I think now more people understand that there's so much that comes out of networking,
Right.
that's why the foundation might be networking. But then you can go on there if you want to, if you have a podcast.
Right,
And by the way, LinkedIn loves podcasts and they
do.
love videos.
Yeah, they
Yes,
love that
yes.
stuff. And
Exactly.
as I kind of said before, honestly, there was a time where I didn't remember my LinkedIn password, and now I'm on LinkedIn every day, literally every day.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changed a lot.
Because it runs by an algorithm. So they really like rich media because it's the closest thing to in person.
Right.
So if you think about networking online, it's a platform for networking,
Yep.
they're trying to mimic what we would do in person.
Yeah. Like I'm on a networking group on LinkedIn. Well, it's not necessarily on LinkedIn. They do it through Zoom, but the group is based in LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you and I were talking before we started recording, and we were talking about these pods and these groups and things like that. And I kind of jokingly said that they were LinkedIn cults. So
You're not far off.
yeah, maybe I'm not far out. No, this is nothing like that. This seems like a pretty cool community, and it's people that are from all around. Like there's a guy who jumps on there who lives in Brazil. So it's really cool that we get to talk with him. He does international business, so that's why he's on it. But and there's another guy who lives here in Nova Scotia, but he's opening a second office in Dubai. No, not Dubai. He was in Dubai, but no, he's opening his second office in Saudi. And he was talking a lot of really interesting things about how the government is changing a lot in Saudi Arabia and everything. So it's really cool. Like that's LinkedIn has kind of brought those people together, and I got to meet people who have interesting stories. And as a podcaster, that's really great.
It is. And I mean, we're talking about, like, I belong to a couple of groups of LinkedIn specialists, and we all are trainers or educators on LinkedIn. And I mean, we just share best practices and kind of like give each other a little hint when we notice something that has changed on the platform or something that we can manipulate or a hack that we can use, and we share those best practices. What I was talking about earlier were the engagement pods, and that's kind of like the LinkedIn cults that you were referring to.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds, I made the joke about that, but it kind of sounds like people who are trying to become like almost like LinkedIn influencers.
Yes.
And then creating groups, and then, creating, whatever you want, followers of such. And you said that they create these bubbles of, I'll let you explain it. They threaten people and to kick them out and all this other stuff, right?
So people are not aware because they see LinkedIn as this, this place for a huge place for professionals to meet and collaborate and connect. But what they don't realize is that there are people there who want to be influencers, and they'll practically do anything to be influencers, and it's not all good.
Yeah.
And some people who are on LinkedIn, vulnerable, maybe wanting so much to have a community, or maybe even showcase their business and get their business out, trying to use it for a tool for that.
Yeah, for those reasons,
or the networking part. But engagement pods are or how should I say that? Something that you have to be aware of. So sometimes you'll notice influencers that have an enormous amount of followers in a very short period of time. Okay, so when you put up somebody's profile, you can pretty much see, and if you're connected, you can actually go back and see when you connected. Yeah. You can see when, like, if they don't have a lot of connections, but they have a lot of followers, an enormous amount of followers for the time that they're on there, you can kind of gauge that they're up to no good, in the sense that what they'll do is basically watch LinkedIn. They're on there. They're the ones who are creeping. Because LinkedIn, a lot of people say, I'm creeping if I go to people's profiles. No, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right, yeah.
But these people are actually creeping to find out your vulnerabilities, to see where there's a weak spot. And then maybe send you a direct message or a DM and say, you know what, I have this group going, would love you to be part of it. Really? And then when you become part of it, they give you all of these kind of, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that you have to do if you want to be part of this group. Okay. So you have to follow, you have to like, you have to be on certain times a day. They can't post anything without you liking. And so they're trying to manipulate LinkedIn.
Right.
And if you don't do it, then they'll basically tell you you're out of the group. Okay. I've even seen some groups where they've made you pay to be part of that group. Right. So it is, in a way, like a cult. I don't think it's that far off. It's a LinkedIn cult, in the sense that they're gravitating towards those people that are on LinkedIn because they really need it. They build community, but they're kind of vulnerable, or maybe not strong, or maybe not those voices that you see out there. And so they want you to believe that you're going to advance because of their help.
Right.
But in reality, they're advancing because of your help, or at least that's what they're trying to achieve.
How do they get like so many people? Because it's like, in one hand, like in the most positive way possible, I'm sitting there thinking like, well, I mean, I'd like to build up like a network of people. I just wouldn't want to be a jerk about it. But like, how do they get so many people so quickly?
So they'll reach out. Now, you have to remember that. So if I like the podcast, so say this podcast, it's when it's ready to come out, and I go on and I like the podcast. Now remember, liking on LinkedIn is at the bottom of the scale when you want to help people. So if I want to help you, I really should be doing more than a like.
Commenting, if I really want to interacting.
A comment of 5 words or more, believe it or not, is key.
Okay, so congrats isn't good.
No, congrats is minimal. Now, there may be some times you're busy and you can't do any more than a like. It doesn't mean you can't love like, but stop loving like so much and actually engage, because LinkedIn wants engagers. Okay. So if I only like the podcast, I'm not promoting an engagement or a discussion. Right. I'm just liking it. Fine. Yeah. But if I say, that was a great podcast, I would like to see more of that kind of podcast, or that was a really interesting thing that Shelly said, or something like that, then I'm paving the way for discussion, because you can come back, somebody else who's on that feed can come back. So LinkedIn, the algorithm of LinkedIn, really likes that whatever you said has brought people together and has created engagement, because that's what networking is.
Right.
So LinkedIn wants you to be a networker. They want you to be an engager. So
I mean, that's a really great tip, though, for like, even for someone like myself who wants to like
Exactly.
increase the podcast and all that stuff. So, would you suggest like for me, because we have the podcast, but then we also have like there's Matt Conrad and there's Mike Tobin.
Yeah.
If we wanted to grow the podcast, it would probably be better if we start commenting from the podcast page then.
From the podcast page, yes, but your individual profiles are connected to that page, and normally you have more clout with your own profile page.
Okay.
So use your profile page to bring people to that page.
Okay, yeah.
So
I do invite it. Like they give you invite credits and
yes,
things like that.
but not only invite. If you put something from your personal, like from your, so every once in a while, like say once a week, you decided to say, hey, join our page. You're going to be seeing this particular podcast from your personal pages too.
Yes.
What
I always share both. That's true. Yeah.
So that draws people. Now, getting back to how these engagement podders get more people. So say I'm one of those people and I have 35,000 plus followers. If I tap in and start engaging on their feed, that taps into my network.
Okay.
So it can come up on my network's feeds. That's how you get more people. They don't necessarily have to be connected. They can be followers by just coming on and seeing that I'm connected, and then they can follow it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about that, because there's some people who I have on LinkedIn, and we have some mutual people that have a lot of followers, and they seem to be legit. They've never asked me to join anything or anything like that, but I've interacted with them a little bit and stuff like, and some people have some really great things to say that I really agree with, some HR people and things like that. So I can see that there's a certain engagement element to it. When you, I kind of wonder, how do they get their start, I guess? Is like they start off, obviously you join LinkedIn and you start off with one, right? And then do they just start adding people? Is that what it is? Like do they just go like click, 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 click?
No,
and,
like every week I have a target for myself. Like I want people to obviously connect with me.
Yeah.
But I have a target for myself. Like, I mean, but I guess because I have a lot of followers, I do get a number of invites.
Natural, yes.
It's natural. It's a natural process once you build up. I mean, 500 is the first sweet spot you want to hit.
Oh, okay.
You know, it is.
Yeah.
If you have less than 50, you're not even an entity on LinkedIn. You're just
Okay.
floating around. So your first sweet spot is 500. It changes your profile internally on LinkedIn. Then everything else is gravy after that.
Yeah.
Because at 500, they see you as a networker. So then you build on that. But 500 is the sweet spot.
And I know
And so-
LinkedIn has like also, well, I guess before we get to that part, I guess, we'll talk, I guess they have a premium package as well. Now, does that obviously gives you some extra stuff.
Yes.
That cost, LinkedIn is free to just join, but then there's a premium package which comes with some perks that costs a little bit.
So LinkedIn is a business.
Yeah.
And that's why they're wealthy, right?
Yeah.
So they don't make money off of just general individuals. They make money off of, recruiters who are buying packages and other support packages like Sales Navigator and LinkedIn Recruiter and all of these different offerings that they have in terms of packages.
Yeah, I get assaulted with things sometimes every week.
Yeah, so of course, but they all
Mostly because of the podcast, though. It's people who write to us and say like, "Hey," and it's like I can kind of tell they're full of shit when they write. They're like, "We listened to your podcast and blah blah blah." I'm like, I don't know if you did. Like, it's just the way they word it's like, we can see that you get this much engagement and we can take it to the next level. I'm like, how do you know how much engagement we get? We don't post those numbers, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's just like those get deleted.
So those are bullshitters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of like fake accounts on LinkedIn?
Yes, there's a lot of fake accounts. There's a lot of salespeople who just don't understand that is the way to lose people and not gain people. Like gain connections is not being a salesperson will be the first, it's probably the thing that most people do, or a lot of people do, and they don't realize that it's such a big turnoff. LinkedIn is all about building relationships.
Yeah.
So if you get on there and you try to sell anything, people are going to, and now because it's been around a long time, and some of us have been on there a long time, we just automatically block those people,
right,
because there's no relationship there. And that's what I do. I block people, block, and I can block 3,000 people. So, I'm probably close to that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I block because I don't want them to come back.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested. I might take you up on something if, first of all, it's relevant for me.
Right.
And second of all, you give me the time it takes for me to go behind and figure out who you are behind the title. On LinkedIn, titles are not so important, but the people behind the title is what's important. So you need to have that relationship building. And it's the same in networking. If you think about it, when we go to an in-person networking event, we don't gravitate to every single person that's there.
True.
We usually gravitate to people that we see, they look friendly, or there's something about them, or there's a discussion that took place and you want more of it.
Yeah.
It's like either LinkedIn, I always get into a topic about LinkedIn and I want more and more. Or if I talk about pickleball, because I'm a pickleball fanatic.
That's right. Yeah.
So if I meet other pickleballers, then I want to know more about them. And then it gets to the business. And then, so creating relationships, you need to have that kind of connection before you can start talking business, because on LinkedIn, it's huge, right? So you have multiple people you can go out to.
That's right. And I agree with that.
But you have to be the person that that person wants to connect to.
Right.
So that can, that comes across in your personality, in how you do your podcast, for example, in how you share it, in how, in the guests that you have. Like, there's a lot of things that come into play, and then people are going to want to gravitate, even your name, Afternoon Pint. It's like interesting. It's different. And I think that's something that will help, people will gravitate to, because it's different.
I actually think that's another reason why we've done really well on LinkedIn is I think we're a little bit different than what people have expected to see on LinkedIn. You can there's lots of great content. I found the content in the last 2 years have been better than it's ever been. There's lots of people who are talking about employee expectations, how workplaces should be, and how employers should treat their employees. And I think that all stuff is really great messaging. There's a couple entrepreneurs that I really follow on there that I really like, and I like kind of listening. Entrepreneurs always intrigue me. But it's a great network. I consider myself a networker more than a salesperson.
Yes.
I've done all right in my career selling. And people say, what's your secret? It's like, honestly, I don't consider myself that great of a salesperson. I like networking. I like people. I'm a social butterfly. I'm an extreme extrovert. And honestly, it's just I just get to know people. I do volunteer work. Whatever. I'm just out in the community. And then eventually people are just like, that I should buy from that Mac guy because I know him and I like him.
Exactly. Right? That's how you get your sales or your interest, because people have gotten to know you.
Right. Yeah.
That's the name of the game. If you really want to have success on LinkedIn, you start thinking about other people. So I do a lot of speaking on social reciprocity.
Okay.
And for me, social reciprocity is the key to success on LinkedIn. What is social reciprocity? It means when you're on LinkedIn, you don't necessarily come first.
Right.
You think about your audience, your target audience. You start doing things for them, whether it's supporting them through a comment, a like, a share, maybe even introducing them to your community, or introducing them to a significant person that they could benefit from knowing.
Right.
And what's going to happen is this, just the way that LinkedIn is built, all of this good stuff that you're paying forward will come back to you. And when you start investing in social reciprocity, success will come. It's just a lot of people go on LinkedIn and it's all about what can I get? What can I achieve? I want success overnight, and it's a journey and it's not a destination.
I think you nailed why I didn't like LinkedIn for a long time. Is LinkedIn seemed to be a place where a lot of people could just go on and just be like, I'm so great. Mm-hmm. Look what I achieved. Pat me on the back. Like, look, I completed this course and this whatever. And it's like, congratulate me. And I think that was kind of the thing that I was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is the bragging social media. I mean, all social media is bragging social media, but I was just kind of like, you weren't getting anything else from it. But it's changed, I find. It's
changed because people were not, they were frustrated, but yet it's such a powerful tool. And I think there's been a lot more learning going on and realizing that if you want to invest in relationships, but I think it's a lot about people understanding this is a networking site. And networking, it takes two. You can't network with yourself.
Right.
At least it hasn't worked for me. So, or anybody else that I've seen trying to network with themselves. But networking, it takes at least two people to network. And so when you're thinking in that way, that it takes two to build a relationship, and what can I do to invest in that relationship, the goodness will come after. And that is the approach that I've taken, and that's why LinkedIn has been good for me. That's the reason I have been successful on LinkedIn for both personal and professional reasons.
Well, so you're also you have an official I don't know if it's employment's the right word or whatever with LinkedIn.
Well, I'm a trusted speaker for LinkedIn, so I've done work with them. I was an ambassador for LinkedIn and the liaison for 3 years.
Okay.
Within the higher education sector, so I built relationships there, and I've done a lot of workshops and presentations, and because basically LinkedIn Canada is not they're not education based, they're sales based, so they're there to officially help you if you want to buy certain programs, like if you want to invest in LinkedIn Learning, or you want to invest in Sales Navigator, or
because you guys do sales courses. I do see that people are complaining, not sales courses, like educational courses.
LinkedIn,
and things like that.
LinkedIn Learning, because if you have a premium account, that's one of the advantages. You get it free.
You get it free. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't have it free,
you can buy it.
You can buy them and go through these courses.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can buy it monthly, to pay it monthly.
Oh, okay. To LinkedIn Learning, you can
LinkedIn Learning, yes.
Buy it monthly.
To have it
what's the cost on that?
So LinkedIn Learning is in addition to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I think it's like $20-some a month for the LinkedIn Learning package, 20-some or 30-some. I don't know the exact amount, but that gets me back to premium, because you'd asked me the question of premium. And with the premium account, it just allows you, so if you're a job seeker, when you apply for a job, you'll kind of make your way up to the top as opposed to not. It allows you...
It is a good job search spot.
Yes, but they are going to give you some... So if you're searching for a job and you apply, and there's some premium account people on there, they are going to get boosted to the top of the hiring, hierarchy. Another thing.
How do they know that though? Like if I see a job on LinkedIn and say I go in and you click apply, sometimes it just takes it to the company's internal site.
Yes, because there's two. There's. I'm talking about the LinkedIn when it says in apply, and LinkedIn is managing.
Because they have fast applies, which is crazy.
Called, fast apply, easy apply.
Yeah, or that's what it is.
Easy apply.
Easy apply.
Yeah, I was forgetting to. Yeah. But easy apply. So if you're applying through Easy Apply, LinkedIn is managing that process.
That makes sense.
So LinkedIn can be a manager, or it can be like a participant,
right?
Meaning that they're transferring, or a transfer, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So that's two different packages. For somebody who's using LinkedIn, they're paying a lot more money for LinkedIn to manage it. If LinkedIn is managing it, then they're going to place your profile depending on what you're paying for.
Right.
So that's just one thing. The other thing that I really feel is an advantage of the premium account, and this just happened recently, is that it used to be that we could send personal connection requests to whoever we wanted to.
Right.
In 2023, that changed. And unfortunately, for free accounts, you can only send 10 personalized request a month.
That's right. Yeah. And they give you credit. I know they do credits for the podcast at the business page. You can only invite so many people.
Yes.
I think it's 100 per month to invite to the whatever.
So if you have the premium account for your own personal account, for your own personal page, you can personalize every connection request. And for me, that's really important because I never send a general request to anybody. I always personalize it. And
Right.
so, but that just goes to show you LinkedIn is a business. They,
of course.
They want...
Well, they need to make their money.
They want to pay.
Right?
Well, yes.
Yeah, they need to make money to exist. Nothing exists for free.
So, of course, at the end of the day, they do want people to invest in LinkedIn and the programs that they have to offer. But, I mean, my thought is that if you're using LinkedIn regularly and you're really comfortable with it and you've made it a part, you just try the month free. They always give a month free.
That's true.
See if you're going to use it. See if you're going to, your experience is going to be optimized because of it.
Yeah.
See if you're going to be able to connect with more people the way that you want to connect with more people. And then after that, then you can decide. You have a month. As long as you, before the cutoff, you tell them you're not
Let them know that you're not
interested, you won't be charged.
I've thought about it. I've clicked on that button a couple of times, and I'm just kind of I'm going to forget.
Just try a month and make make a little note to yourself somehow.
I'll have to
some
set
way.
it in a calendar or something.
I don't know, ask Alexa or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's LinkedIn. So you said you were a public speaker for them. Essentially, you were putting on some classes for them. But you're outside of LinkedIn. You're also a public speaker, and that goes back. You were telling me, I guess a nice story, but not nice story. The end result was a nice story, but the beginning was not so much. But you were telling me a story before we started chatting here about where your speaking career started. Why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I've done some speaking for, I'm a trusted speaker. LinkedIn knows me, so, I try to educate people on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn actually plays a very big role for me because LinkedIn offered me a kind of a rebirth from when I was younger. So when I was younger, I was a public speaker. I think I did my first public speaking gig when I was in grade 4.
So what was that? What was that in grade 4? Because the reason I ask is my wife is a grade 3 teacher.
Okay.
And she's telling me right now that they have speech competitions, and they go to Ottawa. These kids speak for 2 minutes, 3 minutes that do prepare proper speeches, and you can win trips to Ottawa if you win the provincials and all this other stuff. Was it something like that, or was it?
It was something like that, but more in a little village. But
okay, all right,
but still, everybody was there. People would come when it was one of those events where the public could come, and I loved it. And I was this gregarious little. I had a Superwoman costume. I still do, by the way. But I had this Superwoman costume. I was a fun kind. I had a magic wand. I did all of that stuff.
Yeah, okay.
I certainly wasn't put off by speaking at a very young age.
Okay.
I just loved it. I loved and I would do all of these topics like empathy and it was just, it's crazy when I think back to when I was younger. But about grade 6, I had an incident with, I want to say my bully.
Yeah.
And I was up on stage and it was the first time that I had this new pair of red high heels on. And it was a big moment for me that I'm wearing high heels. And I got up to speak and the topic was actually empathy. And my bully was there in the front and, taking that time to taunt me and actually yelled something out to me, and I lost my my little papers that I didn't even need. That's how confident I was when I was up there. They fell to the floor. I ran out through the back, through the curtain that was there, and one of my high heels slipped off my feet because they were a little bit big.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it, and I was crying and everything, and I ran off, and I just said to myself, I'm never doing another public speaking gig again. And didn't for a long time. I didn't for a long time. I mean, I got into teaching. I've always been about helping people, but I love to, speak, in big groups, and, you can give me 5,000 people. As long as it's a topic that I'm consumed with. It doesn't matter how big.
I'm kind of the same.
It
doesn't matter really much.
It doesn't. It doesn't matter. So when I started on LinkedIn, I had an idea that once I got used to it and understood what it was, I actually decided that I wanted to use it as an empowerment tool for women. So I presented it. Actually, the funny thing is, I won this contest, and I was in Calgary at the time. I won a contest, and LinkedIn was there, and I was at the coffee shop, and I saw that they were there, and the person ahead of me had the LinkedIn jacket on, and was ordering a coffee. So ordered the coffee, and I went up and paid for the coffee, and I said, "Here's your LinkedIn latte."
Oh, there you go.
So it was a latte.
Yeah.
And we ended up sitting there talking, and I kind of told them about this idea that I had about LinkedIn and high heels.
Yeah.
And I said, it has nothing to do with the heels. You can wear whatever you want. It's about rising up and finding your voice on LinkedIn. And it was just such a cool conversation. And it was actually that moment that when that representative from LinkedIn actually introduced me to some of the team from back in LinkedIn, and then I ended up becoming an ambassador and liaison for them, and ended up just educating people on LinkedIn and wanting to really empower women, especially women business leaders who have this incredible voice offline, but once they get online, it's like they don't have a voice at all. It's like they become something different. So I took that, what happened to me back in grade 6, and now my signature workshop is LinkedIn and high heels to empower women business leaders to have a voice online.
There's as much as obviously we've come a long way with like equal rights and things like that. That being said, there's definitely seems to be these, I don't know, maybe they're conscious, maybe they're subconscious biases that happen, right?
Yeah.
I could be I'm not, but I could be a hard ass manager, boss, whatever. And, people are like, man, that guy, like, he's a badass. He gets it done, like, whatever. And a woman can do that. And it's like, oh, she's a, beep, 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 whatever, right? And that's kind of the thing, I guess, some like women can go up against. It's something that I don't ever have to really worry about, which I think some people don't quite really realize. So, it makes sense. You see it in business. You see it in a lot of aspects in life. You see it in politics, like women. I'm a big politic guy. Women in politics, like the numbers are generally much lower, and the longevity with women is a lot lower just because. And I think we've talked about this in the previous podcast. I think it's ridiculous the way that our elected officials talk to each other while in the House of Commons. I think they're all adults, and we elect them and we pay them nice big salaries, and they live in this fantasy world. And yet they talk like they're, grade 5s yelling at each other with a teacher in a class. So I can imagine that some of the horrible things that are said to women, you have to have extra thick skin, I think, as a woman in politics. Yeah. Yep.
You have to have an extra thick skin, I think, in more than politics.
Oh, actually. For sure. Yes.
Yeah, I think it exists everywhere. In fact, like workplace bullying is a big thing, and even
we're talking about this LinkedIn.
And even bullying on LinkedIn is a big thing. And that's why the work I do at St. Mary's is all around equity, diversity, and inclusion, because it isn't, in different sectors, and it's important that whether it's in higher education or any industry, there has to be a focus on ensuring that every group has an opportunity to have a voice at a table.
Right. Because we were talking about that before, about how there's everyone knows, like, social media, like Facebook, Instagram, and all the other stuff, like it can be rampant with either bullying or just people saying horrible things to each other, right? Because you're not, there's something to be said about being able to be punched in the face. And when you can't get punched in the face, there's no opportunity for that to happen. People are willing to say whatever they want to say. And you were saying, like, I don't think I've ever witnessed bullying on LinkedIn, but I have more recently witnessed some moronic comments. Yeah. That normally, I honestly, I'd say like LinkedIn was kind of a safe haven. Like I never really came across a lot of that stuff. But I have come across a couple lately where I read a comment and I was just like, well, that seems like a comment that would be in like, you know, in Facebook comment section on like a news article or something like that. And just some moron running on about nonsense. So, yeah.
Well, you know, there's a block feature on LinkedIn, and that block feature came about because there was a case of harassment on LinkedIn very early on in the LinkedIn days.
Okay.
And that the victim of this harassment actually won because she brought LinkedIn to court. Huh. And that was because she was being sexually harassed on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
If you do enough of a search, you'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot, because LinkedIn, the thing is that LinkedIn is the perfect place, to be honest, when it comes to workplace harassment.
Yeah.
So, and workplace harassment is something that is being dealt with on a very high level right now.
Well, I think the thing that makes LinkedIn and other social media is like the exact opposite is, I think, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think I'm right. The social media, Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that, people are less likely to add their coworkers on those personal things.
Exactly.
And more likely to add people on LinkedIn, their coworkers and so on and so forth.
Well, for many companies and organizations, you see, it's your personal LinkedIn profile, but for many organizations, they expect, if you're working there, to make your personal profile their personal profile.
Some of it's that too, yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Because really it is your personal profile. Yes, you're going to represent the company in a capacity in the experience section.
But if you list
it's
that,
really your profile.
Well, it is, but the thing is that as soon as you list that, then companies will expect you to operate in a way that represents them positively. That's the difference between LinkedIn, social, and say Facebook. Facebook, I don't have to mention anywhere where I work. And I can say whatever I want. I can say horrible things, and your employer is like, well, that's his right to say that. We're not associated with it. I had a situation years ago where I had an employee who made his Facebook profile look like the business that he worked at. Like he tried to make his personal one look very professional, and he said something that could easily be mistaken as kind of a racially triggered thing. I think it was more of a language barrier of an issue, but the way it was worded didn't sound great, didn't look great. Someone reported it and said, like, hey, company, it's like, hey, this one of your employees is using one of what appears to be an official site with your name on it saying these things. And, oh, yeah, it was not good. That person was almost let go. All that stuff. But in that case, you can just change that and just be like, it can be Matt Conrad get rid of it. But LinkedIn, you're going to put your business experience on there. So if you say that's where you work and you start saying horrible things, people will go after you and the company you work for. Yeah,
but I mean, what I was referring to is that you are going to put your experience there, and you have a right to put it there because it's part of your journey.
Yeah.
What happens, though, is sometimes you're in a company and they want you to put your background photo, like your banner, for them.
Yes,
they want you to adopt that, when really your background photo is about your expertise.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's okay. It's neither here or there. That's something you
I think I do that. And I've never been asked to do that, but I think I do kind of do that anyway.
And that's okay. Yeah. That's your choice. Yeah. But in reality, your LinkedIn profile is not the company's LinkedIn profile.
Correct.
Your personal profile is about you as a professional, not a professional who works for this company.
That's right.
It's just a part of it, right? This experience that you're having now in insurance is part of your journey. Right. So on LinkedIn, it's all part of your journey. It's just a part, which is a current part, but an important part, but it's right there along with everything else.
Yeah.
But some companies would like you to create your entire profile for them.
Right.
So you'll see banners
branding
made,
and
their
all that
branding
stuff,
and not your branding. So I'm just saying whether it's right or wrong, but I'm just saying in that case, that's what happens in some cases. So it's so what happens, along with you changing your banner for their banner and everything else, they want you to be a team on LinkedIn and accept your coworkers.
Yes.
Now, we never know what's happening because we don't know the dynamics. We can just, all of the coworkers get on LinkedIn, but we don't know, are there coworkers that actually don't get along? Are there coworkers that are jealous of each other? LinkedIn is the perfect place for that to come out.
Okay.
You know, so we don't expect it, but it actually is the place, because people could create a fake profile
Yep.
and start harassing somebody who may have gotten that promotion that person wanted.
Right.
Or maybe favored, or they see that person as favored. So it just becomes that place. I mean, I've seen it all.
Can you report that stuff on LinkedIn?
Yes,
and they take care of
you
it?
can
Yeah, okay.
report. So if you go to the privacy and settings under your icon in the right, your little icon in the right on the top, it'll say privacy and privacy settings and privacy, which is the second option. You click on that, and it'll take you to help, or there's actually a help section right there. There's lots of things that you can do. You report, you cut and paste anything that you see. You never delete anything. You never even delete that person or block that person without collecting that information.
Okay.
Always be a collector of information.
Okay.
Collect, get that little snippet, like I love that little snippet
Yeah,
tool.
I use it every day.
You snip that, you snip it, you collect it, you put it in a folder,
Yeah.
and you report it. You report it, and that's the only way action is going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you see it happening to somebody else, you report it as well. And because the more voices on LinkedIn, the more impact it's going to have, and that's the way it works. But there's sexual harassment, there's workplace harassment, there's jealousy, there's even publicly, a lot of people will try to do it internally through DMs or something like that, but you'll even see public posts where there's put downs and even curse words that are on somebody's profile. You have to take control of that. Again, snip it and report it before you delete anything. It's really, really important, is to always, I wrote an article for Forbes on this whole thing about bullying and LinkedIn, because it's very important for me, this cause. And I basically said, no matter where you are, no matter what social media site you're on, but especially LinkedIn, have a shield of armor that you build for yourself and know what you need to do, because you have to empower yourself. LinkedIn is not, it can't be considered a safe place. It's like anything else. Bullying is going to show up.
Yeah,
but the more, bullying, I mean, I would love to get rid of bullying, period.
Right.
But all we can do is to take action when we see it happen and know how we can empower ourselves when that happens, if it happens to us. And that's something that I constantly say, because you just never know. Jealousy can come from anywhere and anything.
It's interesting how, I honestly, when it comes to bullying and things like that, it makes my blood boil.
Yes.
But the kind of ironic part about it is you were bullied as a child, and you wouldn't have this story and this I don't want to call it branding if not for that, right? It transformed. So with knowing that, would you change anything?
No, looking back now, no, because I love what I do. I love that I get to help people. I love that I get to champion people, all people. And so,
So you wouldn't go back and put a piece of tape over that bully's mouth?
No, not now.
Yeah.
Back then,
of
I
course.
wish I definitely had a little bit more power.
Yeah.
But now, no, actually, and then my bully has come back into my...
I was going to ask you that.
I shouldn't say has come back into my life. I'm not there. I don't want to become friends, but in the sense that she did reach out. Like Facebook is that kind of place,
Yes,
right? Like
of course.
suddenly we're all friends. But anyway, I'm not interested in being a friend, but I have no ill will. I mean, when you're in grade 4, grade
Right,
5,
yeah. That's your whole world.
and I don't know her story. Everybody has a story that
That's true.
nobody knows anything about. And
That's true.
so now that I'm older and wiser, I have more empathy.
Yeah.
And I think that going through it strengthened me. And it certainly paved my way for what I do now. And I'm a big advocate of against bullying. In 2020, I even started a Decide to Be Kind campaign on
you were saying
LinkedIn.
this, yeah.
And that was just to really see how many people that I could get together to really say, you know, kindness is it. No, if you can't do anything, there's a saying out there, but like, if you're going to do anything, be kind.
Right.
Because kindness can promote
It's free.
so much, and it's free. Kindness is free. Yeah. And so I did this Decide to Be Kind. I got wristbands made.
Kind of like the Live Strong, like the rubber ones.
The rubber ones. But over 1,500, and this was during COVID.
Yeah.
Over 1,500 of those bracelets went out to like families and coworkers and teams and individuals and dogs and fur babies were wearing them. Yes, there were pictures. We had pictures. We had like a video made. We had it. It was just such an incredible, how do you say it, initiative.
Yeah.
And the people that got involved, and to just show how important LinkedIn is for everybody, but that it has to remain an inclusive, positive, and inspiring place to be.
Right, yeah.
And that was the whole purpose behind it.
So so going through your journey there, now you're, I mean, you do have your own company and you do public speaking. I mean, you were selected to go on Social Media Day that we have here in Halifax coming up. What's that, next month or June or something? Yeah, June.
Yeah.
So you're selected to go on that, which is, that's pretty cool. You said you did it last year and you said you really enjoyed it.
I did.
So the public speaking seems to have really done well for you now, and like you're out there, you know, people are paying you to come talk. I'd love for people to pay me to talk. That'd be amazing. I love talking.
You're going that direction, man.
Yeah, so that's exciting. You said you get a lot of people like reaching out after that day, right?
Yes. I mean, I think because LinkedIn seems so simple, but it's really not. So a lot of people think they know what it is, but they don't.
Right.
So here I am up there speaking to a huge crowd on the algorithm and how to make that work for you. And most people don't even think about that. They just get on LinkedIn and then hope for the best.
Right.
And then want overnight success. Yeah. And I am there to tell them that's not how it works. Yeah. And how can you optimize your profile and your experience on LinkedIn so you're working with LinkedIn, the tool.
Right.
And so it was really interesting. And I think I stayed, not only did I do the presentation, but staying afterwards, answering questions. Then outside of the place where I gave the presentation, you know, also answering questions. But it was so interesting because I just don't think that many people that were there got that perspective. So, and I was targeting small business owners because LinkedIn is a great place for entrepreneurs and small businesses to promote themselves, because you do get a free page. Yeah. You can optimize your the way that you show up and how you create this kind of like I want to say circuit, like, there's a method, you have to get into a rhythm, and it's not going to happen after night. But just like your presence on LinkedIn and the podcast, it's changed. It's changed, but it takes time, because you got to remember that LinkedIn is a networking site, and networking is something that graduates. So when you network with somebody, it's not the first time you meet. It's not the first time where this connection necessarily, maybe there's a small connection, but then the relationship builds, and then, and then they want to introduce you to other people, and then they're actually reposting your content, or they're introducing you. So that's what you want to lead up to. You want to You want to create it so that people are working for you and you're not paying them a dime.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants. I know that's what when I was in sales, I still tell this to my employees to this day. It's like you want like 10 to 15 people that are willing to refer a piece of business to you every month, because it makes your job a lot easier. And that's the truth. It is the truth, though.
But that's success.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
you start getting people that believe in you, the podcast, enough, or even what you do in your day job.
Yeah.
When you start getting people introducing you, those are the benefits. That's where the benefits start to show up.
Especially so I like networking. So any Star Wars fan is gonna understand when I say the rule of two. So I have a rule of two, and it's not the Sith rule of two that Star Wars refers to. My rule of two is I always want to have two people that do the same thing in my network. And it's for the exact reason that you mentioned earlier, that some personalities don't mix. Some people just, don't get along, whatever. And I learned this actually at a very early 20s when I was in sales and I was learning how to sell, where you would have, team selling. Because sometimes you have a client in front of you and, I could be making jokes and they could be laughing and I could be singing along and they'd be singing along and they think it's funny and they think I'm the greatest. And then the next person who comes in thinks that I'm just annoying. And they're like, why is this guy telling jokes? I'm not laughing. This isn't funny, whatever. And you have, a teammate with you who might just, hit it off better, right? They might see that I fell flat on my face with my stupid humor and they might go, I'm not going to take that route. I don't have that relationship with this client, so I'm going to go more serious. And they have another opportunity to get in there and build that. And I learned that at a young age. It's like, you know what? Sometimes you can't, not everyone can like you. So I try. If I have a real estate agent, I have two. If I have a mortgage broker, I have two. And it's, whatever, right? And I will refer to those people based on, it's like, okay, I know someone. I know Shelly. I know what her personality's like. That guy's not going to be good for her, right? He's going to talk really direct, and maybe Shelly doesn't like that kind of thing, right? So I'm going to send them to the other person that I know. That's my biggest thing. And I think LinkedIn can really help with that because it obviously builds your network quite a bit.
Yes, 100%.
But so now, going over to SMU, because I think this is really interesting because you've taken all of your networking, you've taken your personal story about how you felt, and, you've taken everything. And now you're, as well as being, working for yourself, you're also working for SMU. Mm-hmm. And you're focusing on...
That's my day job.
That's your day job, exactly. So and you're focusing on, equity and inclusion, which is tough and broad. What's your day look like when you're doing that? What's your day-to-day look like?
Well, I think, working in equity, diversity, and inclusion, it's big. But it's really about, just advocating and championing awareness and education. So I think a big part of my job is just realize awareness and training and helping people to understand that, differences matter. I mean, SMU is there's such a diversity terms of
international school. Absolutely.
International school and diversity in terms of staff, students, faculty.
Yeah.
So it's just to further that discussion, further that promotion. I also, work a lot on just giving advice and consideration on processes and gathering data too, because data is key in anything that you want to do.
Right.
So I mean, it's so worthwhile to be doing that because it's
So do you work with a team or do you work with students, or do you have to go to the faculty and be like, hey, you're not being inclusive enough, or these are some policies we need to change to be more inclusive? Or
no, we have a team that works together with in EDI, and of course we're there to just educate all of the stakeholders that are part of the SMU community.
Yeah, help create policies within the school and things like that as well.
Policies, procedures, and just overall respect for diversity. and inclusion.
If anyone listening to this doesn't understand the difference between equality and equity, can you do that? Can you explain the difference between equality and equity for us?
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in a sense for a beer. We're going to talk about beer since I'm in the afternoon pint.
You are on the afternoon pint, and you mentioned beer, and I should actually mention it. We are at the Oxford Tap Room, Garrison's Oxford Tap Room. They are so kind to us. They always welcome us here. They're super great on social media. They're a networking group for us. I am drinking the Nitro Stout. It's their milk stout. I have no idea what you're having, but it's something lighter. That's for sure.
Garrison Light.
Oh, you have the Garrison Light. Okay.
Oh, no, I don't. Tall Ship Light.
Oh, the tall.
I was going to take Garrison, and then I did the Tall Ship.
All right, the Tall Ship Light. Okay, perfect. There you go. Yeah. So you're going to use a beer analogy.
Okay, so we're going to use beer. So here we are. There's some people around us.
Yeah.
Okay, equity is everybody being offered a beer.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm down with that.
Okay, everybody. Everybody's offered a beer. After that, diversity is everybody being given the opportunity to decide what beer they want, and if anything else they want added to the beer.
Okay.
Maybe some people want something added to the beer. So what kind of
a
beer?
little orange on top or something.
Yeah. So what do you want?
Right.
And then inclusion means that the beer I want and what I want in the beer perhaps is attainable and there for everybody.
Okay.
So, if I want a Garrison Light, but I only want half a beer with the other beer, with something else, maybe a Coke. Not that I would have that, but, maybe I want a lemon.
You ever heard of a black and tan?
No.
Black and tan's an Irish thing. It's the bottom is the lighter and the top is the stout.
Oh, I'm learning more about beer today. Yeah. That's a learning curve for me. So it just means, and it's attainable for me. So if I want something special and you don't, then that's okay, but it's going to be attainable and it's there for me. So it means taking into consideration that everybody has different, there could be, we all have different maybe requirements, or there's requirements that we have to consider in order for it to be equitable. So that's putting it into kind of beer terms.
Do you ever find that it can, do you ever find that environments can't achieve that at any point in time? Because sometimes, as we know, not everyone gets along. Is there any times where you find where it's this might be an environment where this may not be able to happen?
I think it's just in general, it's progress and not perfection. I'm not after perfection. I don't think we live in a perfect world.
We sure don't, yeah.
And so, I think awareness is just key. And I think, if everybody decides that they want to be part of change and they want action to happen and they believe that, diversity is important and that differences help make the world so unique. Yeah. I think it's just about education. I think it's really about education, but are we going to change the world and everybody's on board? Unfortunately, no. But I think that any steps that we can make to help people have a better understanding around equity, diversity, and inclusion will help make it a better and more equitable and inclusive place to be. I can't explain it any more than that, but it's just I think education is key, because you got to remember that biases develop from a variety of different things. So, for example, I grew up in a very small village in New Brunswick. So, when you walked out your door, everybody was the same color and came from the same small little village. And I really didn't grow up with a lot of diversity, and my parents didn't grow up with a lot of diversity, so I was really influenced by that. And I moved to Montreal shortly after graduating from university, and Montreal is such a international place
very
to
much
be.
So,
And not only that, just the culture and the language and in so many ways that it really opened my eyes to a world that didn't exist the way that I was growing up.
Right.
And so I think just like that's just an example of where biases can come in. It's not even unconscious bias, for example, is something that's not conscious. It's something that's unconscious. So my childhood background or my growing up could influence how I see my world.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we're not educated to understand that we may have unconscious bias, we may not be able to change it. When we're aware that we could have it, we stop with that pause and we think before we might say something, before we might have an idea.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. You walk into a bar like this one and you see a group of people, and maybe it's a group of like just a bunch of people getting together. You don't really know anybody. Go sit somewhere.
Right.
And you look around the room. You don't just go and sit. You're looking around the room because you want to find that particular table where you feel you're going to be the most comfortable.
Right.
So maybe you're looking around for a table that has some beer.
Right.
Not that table that doesn't. Maybe you're looking for, somebody that looks like you.
Right.
Or your age.
Yeah.
You don't, and we all do it.
Yeah.
So but how do we increase our community if we always do that? I make it a point now that when I do go someplace new, some networking, in-person networking, that I consciously make an effort to go into groups and talk with people that I may not have talked to before.
Right.
Just not because I didn't want to talk to those groups. It's just my unconscious bias, which is all in my brain.
I think a lot of people naturally drift to like either, we see it in work and like even at work. I was at a manager's conference and, they actively said like, why are you guys all sitting with people you see every day? Right? Like, honestly, It's like you're all sitting with people you talk to every day, or the people all within the same city. It's like we have people from 3 different provinces here. Go sit with somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. So I see a little bit of that. Everyone has their own biases. Like I try to be conscious about that myself, and I've learned a lot in the last like 4 or 5 years about expanding that. I think it was always in me though, because I was the kid in high school that bounced from table to table to table.
Well, that's good.
I think it's just my outgoing personality. I just want to talk to people, and I want to I get energized from going out. Some people come home and they're exhausted. My wife's an introvert, so she's out and talking to people and stuff. She'll go home. She's like, oh, she's mentally exhausted. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm like, I get fired up, right? I could do podcasts all night, right? If I stacked, 3, 4, 5 of them in a row, I'd be just as good to go for all 5 of them. Mm-hmm. And I think, in a lot of ways, I think we've been fairly successful with the podcast on having diverse groups of people, because Mike and I both are really interested in hearing about what other people have to say. And we're also really interested in bringing people together. We're tired of the tearing apart and the negativity and all that stuff. And we saw a lot of it through COVID. And I think outside of COVID, like outside of how you felt about COVID, I think just how separated we were from each other during COVID. Like it was a byproduct of COVID. We just didn't get to see each other in person. And so then you kind of felt like you could say whatever you wanted, right? And, pick teams or whatever it may be, right? But so we were just not cool with that, right? We were just like, nah, we want to have a thing where we sit down, talk to a bunch of different people. And I said Mike and I were having a conversation just last week. And I said, it's really weird kind of being in the center of things and, being neutral and stuff like that. Because when you're neutral or you're politically centered or anything like that, the left thinks you're right and the right thinks you're left. Mm-hmm. Right. And, or, if you're neutral on things, like if you try to, like, I do try to look at things from a different point of view. And I like playing a little bit of devil's advocate sometimes, and I know Mike does too, because we do it to each other, where we'll say like, what about this? And I may not even believe what I say. I just like to say things to make people think differently than what they're thinking. And that's what I think I like about doing this, honestly.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that, I was psyched to be on the show, because I do like the diversity that you've had. And, working in this field, I just feel that it's just so important, and curiosity is key. And one thing about you is you're curious. And I think curiosity, asking questions to people, and if you're not around different people, you don't get to ask questions and you don't get to enrich yourself, because you're learning so much about other people and the diverse lives they've led. But if you don't ask questions, question asking is such a big thing, and curiosity is such a big thing. And you get to, just realize, because we're not just in Halifax, we're part of a bigger world. And when we allow ourselves to be part of that bigger world, we can just learn so much from it. And
and we're growing here.
Exactly.
And you know what? I was actually having this conversation today about, we're seeing restaurants from countries and cultures that we have never had here before. Mm-hmm. It's so cool, right? Apparently there's a Yemen restaurant here in up by Bears Lake or something like that. Someone was telling me about it. I'm like, I've never had Yemen food. I'm going to try to go there.
So go in and not only have the food, go and ask the owners about their background. And how did they end up coming here? Like, it's just like, how did they end up, here? And
I'm always curious about that.
So it's just really interesting, the stories and then it allows them, the whole idea behind EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, is to have that sense of belonging, because there's nothing worse than feeling alienated or not feeling like you can participate or have what other people are having, because of the way that people are judging or discriminating against. Or so it's you
know what, the one thing that I struggle with, it's a little bit hard, is that I am someone who likes to connect with people, as we talked about that. And one thing that was kind of raised to me before that I never thought about, again, it's a privilege of being from here and always feeling welcome here, is because I am curious about what brought people here. I'm always like, if you tell me you're from Tunisia, and I'm like, how did you hear about Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Tunisia? Mm-hmm. And why did you come here? I'd love to know that, right? I'm always curious, what made you choose here? And the thing that was kind of mentioned to me before is that can asking people, like, if you hear an accent, or if you hear like whatever, right? And you pick up on something where they may be from somewhere else, it's like, sometimes asking them that can be a negative thing, because it can make them remind them that they're not from here and exclude them. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, I don't want to do that to anybody.
I have to take this opportunity to chime in, because I do a lot of work on microaggressions. And microaggressions are, they're those subtle things that we say to people without realizing that they're actually a jab. Yeah. So when we meet somebody and we say, where are you from? Because they could be from here.
Absolutely. No, 100%, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think it's, or like, I'll give you another example, is your English is really good, because we just expect, and so that's why being in this field is so important, because, a lot of microaggressions are not, when people use microaggressions and are microaggressors, they're not doing it intentionally. Yeah. They're not doing it because they want to hurt. In fact, some people think it's a compliment in some way. Yeah. But the way we say things is really, really important. We have to start thinking more about neutral language, and
so we
have to think about how it could be received on the other end. So maybe, and that is education, and it's practice. Yeah, it's totally down to practice.
So how would you, if you were to advise me, how would I ask somebody where they're from without asking them where they're from, I guess?
Well, I would
Because you were talking about the yummy, the Yemen restaurant. If I go in there and be like, hey, where are you from? Whatever, right? Obviously, I think it's Yemen, but you never know.
No, but if you get into a discussion about the food and everything like that, and then just see where they go from there, and just say how whatever it is, like talk about more about the food and the culture around the food, and then it's going to come out more naturally than it is. Or if maybe you did see a write-up about them. Like the other thing is you can educate yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like if I see a new restaurant, I can do a little bit of a research, and they're going to maybe even show up somewhere that there's been a write-up about them, and it might give you an indication. So you could say something like, "Oh, I know, I read that article, and I heard that you came here 2 years ago," and like, it's sometimes just letting the conversation flow so that you're better aware than coming up with your own interpretation. Right. So it's trying to build towards awareness more than assumption.
Right.
So, and it's hard to do because we all assume something.
Well, so the thing is, my wife is from Quebec, and she has an accent, and
and I get
but
that.
it's not much of one, right? Like her accent, I find maybe it's just me, and because I'm used to her, but I don't find that she has like a very thick accent. But it's certain words that are there, and she gets asked sometimes, like, "Oh, where are you from?" And she's like, "Well, I've only been living here for 15 years or 14 years." I'm like, she's from Quebec City, and she's proud to be Quebecoise, but she's Nova Scotian. Like, she'll never go back to Quebec. She could divorce me tomorrow, and she'll never go back to Quebec.
But even if she did or she didn't, like I think what it is that it's just people. So I get that all the time because I do have an accent. My accent is, I don't know. It's a mix, I guess. It's a mix from New Brunswick, Montreal. But whatever it is, people will automatically assume, and they say, "Oh, are you French?" Or, and then it gets all into this discussion, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Like not all the time, but sometimes it can be uncomfortable. So it's just like get into I think it's more about awareness again than assumption. Yeah. So I think we assume, and we come in with our own story about another person.
Right.
Like, I assume, I hear your accent, I assume I'm going to predict you're from Quebec, or I'm going to predict you're from New Brunswick. I'm going to predict that.
Right.
As opposed to asking the questions and letting the other person give you the information so you have a clear idea of what that story is, as opposed to making your own. Now, nobody's going to say that it's easy. I mean, I often say this in my presentations. If you have a brain, you have bias.
Yeah.
Okay?
Of course. Yeah.
So we all have bias, people. Anybody on this podcast, you have a bias.
Yes.
And it's okay, and it's not a bad thing, and it doesn't make you a bad person.
Right.
It just means that if we all just thought a little bit, we would insult people less. We would not hurt people as much, or we wouldn't say things that we wouldn't want to say. We would just be backing up a little bit and instead engaging people, because everybody wants to be treated equal. So it's more about engagement and finding out and being curious as opposed to assuming. But it's not going to happen overnight, because as humans, bias is part of our capacity to so at any one moment we can get 11 million bits of information coming through our brain. Where do we place it? So we have two major parts. The biggest part of our brain is where all of those biases are housed, because it's when we have all of that information, we have no choice but to put things in compartments to make it easier.
Right.
So, for example, if a line came to visit us right now, right at the top floor of the Oxford, and a line came here, we would automatically jump and run for safety.
Yes.
So that's part of the smaller brain, okay? That's part of our logical brain. But the bigger part of our brain is where we walk into a room and we go and sit with people that we assume we belong with.
Right.
Right? And that's because it's housed in our brain that we should look for people that we connect with. So by being more curious and putting ourselves in the position of going into that group that doesn't seem so comfortable, but hey, let's start talking, let's getting to know each other. That's going to lessen the bias, and it's going to help you to be more inclusive, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because it doesn't take much to just change how we maneuver ourselves and now that I've been in it because I've been working in EDI since 2020 predominantly, and what I've decided to do is that when I go into a room or I go in somewhere or I go to a restaurant, I try to just change what I normally would do and ask questions that I normally wouldn't have asked maybe back in the day, and just change it up. And now a lot of it comes naturally because I've challenged my brain to operate differently.
Right.
And our brains are powerful, but we have the power to change our brains, the way that we think and the way that we want to invest in the relationships that are around us, right?
Right.
So I think it's just about lessening the assumption and gaining more perspective by true conversation, so you know the story. And it's a hard kind of transition because we're so used to assuming, but it's actually something that opens, when you're doing it long enough, it actually opens our brains so that we have more ability to be logical than we have to be, how do you say that, spontaneous.
Okay.
And I'm no brain expert, but
no, that's fair. But you know what? Actually, I think that's a really good spot to end this on, because, I think really we started off talking about kindness, and then we get into a little bit more detailed way of kind of being consciously kind.
Consciously kind, yes.
And I think that those are kind of two different things, but two good things. But I think on that, I think we can cheers to that. And thank you very much for coming on here and giving us our lesson on kindness and inclusion, diversity, and all that.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, everything. So thank you very much. I think, good luck in June in your speaking events. And hopefully people enjoy everything we chatted about today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.